Welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs.
Welcome back to the Your Family Dog podcast. I'm your host, Tina Spring, and I'm joined today by Aishlyn, who is a favorite guest, and we're having her back. And part of the reason I wanted to always include Aishlyn is she is a dog trainer. She's beautifully gifted to training dogs, and she has a toddler. So and we're hoping this will be a reoccurring episode where Aishlyn will come on pretty regularly to talk about what's going on between Delilah, the baby, and the dogs. Aishlyn, do you live with 2 dogs or 3?
I have 2 dogs. 2 dogs, a cat,
Dogs.
and a chicken.
Wait, two dogs, a cat, and a what?
Chicken.
A chicken?
Yes.
I love that. Okay. So as Aishlyn comes back, what we're going to talk about this episode is actually going to be the same theme moving forward. So kind of like what's Aishlyn working on with the baby and the dogs now? So Noir is a service dog. She's beautifully trained. Was trained kind of somewhat more traditionally. Would you say that that's fair?
No, that is fair.
Yeah, that she and Noir is a very intense dog. Not a ton of levity, but more levity than she's had in the past. Yes?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And how much does she weigh?
She fluctuates between 35 and 40 pounds.
Right. So not a big dog. We don't really know what her heritage is. She has the best resting bleep face that I have ever seen in a dog. Like, she cannot play poker. Her face has captions. The other dog is, her name just fell out of my head. Starts with a V.
Vega. It
Vega.
does.
And Vega is a itty bitty Chihuahua cross who is hysterical and like a furry ping pong ball and is dinky. She's tiny. And pretty fearless. Would you say Vega's pretty fearless?
Oh, yeah, she's got crazy amounts of confidence.
Probably too much sometimes. Like,
Definitely.
we'll go bopping
Definitely.
through the world. So we're talking about 2 really different dogs, 2 really different sizes, and first-time mama with a toddler. So how old is sweet Delilah now? Because I know we just had an important date pass.
Yes, so she's just right at 16 months.
Right? So you're starting to feel the pressure.
Oh, yeah. No, she's moving, she's doing all the things. I'm sorry, 15 months. She's at 15 months. But she's doing all the things, she's running around. She wants to help with everything that you're doing. She wants to help the dogs. She wants to feed them anything that she can. She's tons of fun, but she's all
Right,
over the
but now you realize why having babies is not an old woman game, because I would simply just, I don't know, I'd be curled up in a corner crying because I would be so tired. So I'm glad that you are sweetness and light and have abundant energy to play with your kiddo. So what we're going to talk about today, and like I said, we're going to make this an ongoing theme, is kind of with Delilah and the dogs. That's what we're going to name it. Delilah and the dogs. Kind of what you're working on now, things that are, things that you've noticed, points where there's potential conflict. And we're just going to talk about different ways to work through that. And what's worked and what hasn't worked, because again, your dogs are really different and each of our dogs are a study of one. So my 4 dogs are all very different from one another. And I think one of the things I'm really sensitive to is often dog trainers or veterinarians or behavior people just say, we'll do this and that'll fix it. And one, I'm going to say it's not broken. The baby's not broken. The dogs aren't broken. But they may have points where their environments, both internal and external, potentially are going to have points of conflict. or even things that aren't a conflict for you or for Delilah or the dogs, but for you as the mama or your sweet guy as the dad are like, whoa, 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 there's a flag on the play. This does not feel comfortable to me. So I'm going to zip it and let you have the floor and talk to us about kind of some, not really pain points, but things that were concerning to you enough that you were like, yeah, I'm not really loving how that's going. So I think the easiest way is probably list out any of the situations and then we'll dig into kind of different ways that you've gone about trying to work on it. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Then take it away.
All right. Uh, Hello, everybody. I hope you have been having a fantastic day. Like she said, I have two dogs, Noir and Vega, and then my precious daughter, Delilah. If we had to point out some of the main things that I would say worry me, the potential to begin resource guarding, just from things that you've started to see, right? Dog Vega might have a little bone, and you start seeing Delilah, approaching. Vega has started kind of throwing off appeasement behaviors, right? She has a lot of licking, a lot of like, let me jump up in your face, let me, run around you very quickly, a lot of submissive appeasement behaviors.
But
That
lots of sweet, soft corrections from the dog that
Yeah.
people often would miss, that they would
Oh
go, oh,
yeah.
they're just playing, and oh, she's
Right.
happy and she's excited.
No, exactly. And then that's exactly what's happening. So much so to the point where even as a dog trainer, because of the level of trust that I have in my dogs, even knowing that they're dogs. There was an incident recently where Vega was at my feet. It was all supervised. Delilah came up. Vega had, and I didn't realize, but she was chewing on a little hoof. And Delilah came up, wasn't touching her, but was standing over watching, the cool doggy chewing on this thing that Vega or Delilah also wants to put in her mouth. But chewing on this thing and noticing the situation where, okay, the dog has a resource, whether or not she's shown any, guarding or any of this in the future, like it could be a potentially bad thing. I reached down to move Vega. And this is where I realized that Vega, like very quickly, it wasn't a snap, no contact was made, but she did whirl around, like, whoa, what's happening? And that was a real big red flag to me, going, she's stressed out enough by Delilah approaching to think if Delilah touched her, she's worried enough to try and correct, right? So we put
Right.
in,
And that you jumping in unintentionally added pressure
yeah,
to
no, it
Vega.
did.
So it did give you a confirmation, like, yes, she is actually concerned that somebody's going to touch her bony, her little hoof that she was chewing on.
Hmm.
So, and I would say that this is something that I talk to families about a lot, no matter how old the child or the dog is, or how special needs, or, you know, is when at all possible, you moving so that you can, one, focus on getting the dog to wag their tail. Like,
Yeah.
Vega, if you had gone, hey, sweet girl, what have you got there? She would have become a wiggle bug and it would have
Hmm.
dissipated that energy. And you could have, even in the short term, either moved Vega or picked up the hoof and gone, oh, I see what this is about. And said to Vega, like, here, you can go behind the gate, or you can go in your crate and you can enjoy your hoof in peace. I think often that whole, I'm going to do it, but the whole energy of like that energy from a mama, even if it's not external, it's just in your heart,
Hmm.
absolutely adds. It would be like screaming no, right? Like it adds an energy and a pressure to the situation that can really um, escalate the situation. And in the case of resource guarding, it informs the dog that whatever they have is so amazing, you're even panicked about it.
Right. Right. Exactly. So you're saying essentially affirming it is a big deal. Be worried. Right. So yeah. So when that happened, gosh, that was several weeks ago. When that happened, of course, the first thing was, okay, dog needs to go up. She can still have her crate. And it wasn't, the dog, or it wasn't Vega, bad dog or anything like that. Resource guarding, is instinctual. It's not a welcome behavior, but it's a
Well,
natural
but
one for dogs to do.
we do it. We do it too. You're not going to give me the pin to your debit card.
Yeah,
And you
exactly.
love me and I love you and we trust one another, but we still wouldn't do it, right?
Right.
So I think sometimes people don't realize, like, let's not ask the dog to have more self control than we have. Where, like, I
Right.
lock my house, I lock my car.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, this is something that's important to Vega. Maybe you didn't realize how
Yep.
important it was. Maybe the chicken started it by going over and hassling her when she's chewing on her hoof. We don't know where it came from, but Vega
Right.
decided it was important.
She did. No, she definitely did. And we can't fault her for that, right? When we're talking about just animals in general, if they didn't guard their resources, how would they survive? So, of course, she went in her crate. I had a breath. I'm like, okay, this could have turned into a really bad situation. Um, or if I didn't recognize this, it could have escalated. All of these mom thoughts going, oh my goodness, did I fail? What have I done wrong? And it really made me
Okay,
step back.
so I love you. You're doing great. You're more than good enough. You've got this. Kids and dogs are going to give us 10,000 repetitions to get it right. They're
Oh, yeah.
amazing, awesome kiddos and amazing, tolerant dogs are going to have conflict. The
Yeah.
goal is always exactly what you do, what you did, to how to work through so that those conflicts, when they happen, don't escalate to something dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because just like then, I try to be really good about toys, bones, stuff like that. Resources are away, are up, so that that doesn't happen, but it did, right? The bone might have been under the couch. She's pretty small. She snuck under. She found it, and was chewing on it while I'm sitting there watching Delilah do her little dance. It was under my feet. Um, so I mean, things happen, right? We can't have a perfectly controlled situation. Um, so if I had any recommendations for other than managing the environment and things like that, knowing that things do happen, my biggest suggestion is to not, like you said, go, oh my goodness, and this and that, because it is going to raise, that tension of the situation that exponentially, right? To instead, if you see something that could potentially be, a dangerous situation, approach it lightheartedly with, the expectation and understanding that it could be serious, right? That it absolutely could be dangerous. But approaching it lightheartedly, Vega, oh my goodness, come here, trade the dog, have Delilah move off, something like that, instead
Right.
of exploding and making it worse.
So sometimes, often you can just call the dog, right?
Yeah.
So you can call the dog or you can call the child. What I would say is that you have to, in my experience anyway, you have to practice
Oh, yeah.
moving ourselves so that we're not calling them into closer contact, but instead moving them away from one another because space is time, right? And toddlers are fast. Like,
Oh,
man,
man.
is I like I had a client who said once, I think this was like the perfect way to explain it to me. She has a little boy, and she said, no, you don't understand. I closed my eyes while I was sipping my cup of coffee and the child was on the top of the bookcase.
Right. No, she's quick.
She was like, I have no idea how he's that fast. Like he's going to be an Olympian. Right?
Hmm.
So getting, sometimes it's advantageous to jolly the child, to be like, Delilah, let's go get a popsicle, right? Come
Yeah.
on. Sometimes it's Vega, yay, let's go bedtime. And taking her hoof with her. There's not a there, you just have to kind of play through the scenario. And I would I would say, like, practice it when it doesn't matter. Like, practice how
Yeah.
to get each party to move when you need them to move.
Right. Right. Something else too. Fortunately, this isn't an issue for us, but owner guarding, right? I find this in a lot of clients, and I'm glad that, it's not necessarily an issue. However, have a feeling if Noir didn't have all the work that she has into her, like, she very easily could have gone, "No, this is my mom." Um, but she doesn't because of all, the work we put into her. But owner guarding, right? So being able to, if Noir did, was up against me going, getting affection. Delilah comes up being Delilah, 15 months old. I mean, she's waddling over. Oh my gosh, I want to pet the doggy too. Dog raises its lips, right? Bares its teeth. That would be a situation. Well, of course, we wouldn't want to put them in a situation, but that would be a situation where we would stand up, put space between us and the dog, take kid away. Right. So, no, yeah,
Well, and
me
again, I think
moving.
the average family, that stops their heart, and they
Yeah,
wanna
no,
add more,
yeah.
and this is where, like, our humanness and a dog's dogness kind of bump up against each other. I see it most often, like, with my own dogs where there isn't a toddler in the house, where, let's say Marco and Dovey have a little minor conflict over something, and both of them hurt the other one's feelings. Both of them will run to me to help them, which I appreciate. But then they're like, "Ew, you're here." And I see that with children and dogs too, that, let's say Noir's being made to feel uncomfortable and crowded by a toddler, Delilah, who's fixated on her. Like, she doesn't, Noir loves her. Like, she just
Right.
sometimes needs a break. If Noir comes to you for support and Delilah follows her, all of a sudden we have that closing of distance and potentially some signaling that's saying, like, hey, I want you, like, I need mom right now. It's like everybody who has more than one child, they all need you at once.
Yes. Right, so then you put Noir, you stand up, grab the kid, you got her in your arm, and you take Noir, put her behind the baby gate. Here's a Kong, here's a Chewy, here's something for you to enjoy, keep your mind off of whatever was stressing you out, right? Um, so yeah, so that's one of the big issues we're running into right now is, one, the potential for resource guarding with Vega and Noir. I mean, Noir is perfectly capable of doing that too.
Do
That hasn't
chickens
happened.
resource guard?
I I don't know.
You'll have to watch the chicken. What's the chicken's name?
It's Priscilla.
Priscilla the chicken. Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she doesn't have much of a survival instinct. Um, if you do scatter feeding with the dogs out in the yard, she's gonna go right up and try and take it from their mouth.
So
So
that's what I was gonna ask. So I will tell you, like, we don't have a toddler. The
Right.
cat, the cat builds resource guarding in the dogs because he just thinks it's funny to see if he can get a kibble out of the bowl or to see if he can get one of the cookies outside of the crate or see if he can get, and he definitely has built resource guarding in some of my dogs who resource guard because and honestly in Christopher and I too, because he will try to steal your sandwich. Like, he he does, he's a cat and he has cat rules. Thank you very much. And so sometimes I think people are like, well, I don't understand why the dog is like trigger stacked about this. And I'm like, because it could have been that the cat started it. Right. It doesn't mean that the
Right.
dog's doing something wrong. And the cat's just being a cat too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we might not ever know, but it does exist, right? And that's a really good point.
And I think
Maybe.
it's safer to assume it's gonna happen than to
Yeah.
assume it doesn't. Like, I'm a plan for the worst, hope for the best, and the answer is probably gonna be somewhere in the middle.
Right. And that's kind of where we're at. We're somewhere in the middle. Knowing, like, the damage and things that dogs can do, even knowing, loving, trusting my dogs, right? It's like, "Oh my goodness," and that's where the mom guilt falls in, where, "Oh, this could have happened." Even though the likelihood of it with the dogs that I have, me, Delilah, we're not maybe even not there, but knowing the things that I know as a dog trainer and as a mom, right? That puts a lot of guilt, a lot of like, "Oh my gosh." So resource guarding, is definitely something and that could be their bed too, right? If Noir's laying down in her bed, making sure that Delilah doesn't have access to walking over there to try and give her a big puppy hug that she thinks is great and Noir thinks is the worst thing in the world. Um,
Yes. So one thing we need to say about Noir
yeah,
is Noir does barely tolerates having Aishlyn touch her.
right.
She's kind of more like a feral cat that everything she's anxious, right? She's a sweet girl. We love her, but you can literally see Noir. Noir's done this a bunch of times with me where she's like, I really like your cheese. And I know that your heart's desire is that you can touch me. And she literally, you see her acquiesce and go, fine, you can pet me. Okay, that's enough. And then move off, right? That she's like, here is my gift to you. You can touch
Mhm.
me exactly 3 pets. And then I'm
Right.
going to walk away because that cuddling thing is not for me.
Oh yeah, no, it's not.
And it's a beautiful gift when she gives it to you. It makes my heart sing every single time. It'll be interesting to see as she ages and as Delilah grows if she'll have special Delilah rules.
Right. That will be definitely very interesting. She's the first, like, kid she's ever been around. My little brother was older, when she was younger. So, no, it's gonna be fascinating for sure because she's gonna turn into a little old lady, and that's gonna be really interesting to see what that dynamic looks like as they get older. Other than resource guarding has been a big one, because wherever it started, wherever the fear stems from, like, it's occurring. And it's not the big explosions where the dog, is going after the kid. It's a dog version of saying, "I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable. It's mine." And we do that too, right? But dogs speak with their teeth, their mouth, things that could potentially cause harm. And
Well, and
kids
there's
don't
probably
understand.
things that have you seen any of Delilah guarding something from the dogs that she perceives? She found something and it's hers, and toddler rules, it belongs to me. And that she almost she's holding her toy. The dogs don't actually care about that toy, but she thinks they do. And a lot of times I get reports of kids shoving or fussing at the dog or whatever. Have you seen any of that?
So, yes, actually. Uh, my cat, Newton, he's an adolescent. He's like, no, he's 2 years old. He's still like a young adult. He loves cheese, bread, anything but fruits and vegetables. And if she's got a cheese stick, if she's got a croissant, if she's got a piece of bread, anything like a cracker in her hand, and he's out, she wants to be right there. His little paw is gonna come up and bat, try and bat at it out of her hand. So when that started happening, when she was moving around holding snacks in her hand, chomping on them, she very quickly realized, like, this is mine. If I let him try and go at it, they're gonna take it. And the dogs will do, we're much more careful, right? But if the dogs happen to be out and she's out holding a snack and they come up and do a sniff, it's no, this is mine. It's my snack. They don't care so much about the toys. But if there's a snack or food involved, there's a little sniff, sniff, sniff. So yeah, so kids resource card too. She hasn't done any of the pushing away. Uh, Now with Vega, because of all of her appeasement behaviors, uh, she likes to, just like if it was a dog, like stand on her back legs and try and lick Delilah's mouth, right? Delilah does not like that. And we don't allow it, right? It's a very quick, like, Vega, stop, right? Or even before it happens, going, Vega, come here. But when it does, she's learned very quickly that if Vega comes up and she's doing the wiggle, 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 she's licking Vega's licking her lips, that a potential face lick could be coming, right? And so that it's also something we're keeping an eye on too. Um, she'll run up to Delilah, Vega will, and Delilah knows it's coming, and so she's doing the, turning away, and then she'll hold a hand out, right, to stop
Right.
the appeasement behaviors. So yeah, that is
So
all those things.
help me navigate. that this is an example of where like Gina and I would be training in a signal that a cue that Delilah can developmentally do that means go to your settle space, right? Or go to your crate or whatever, so that the baby has agency to send the dog to move them away. Like for resource guarding in general, I think a settle mat or a place cue is a really phenomenal option. And I recommend having more than one and name them different things so that it's easy for mom or dad or the baby even to move the dog off and out of their way when the child wants to be left alone. Is that something that you've tried or thought of or no?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, they have plenty of, like, spatial cues, like, "Go here, go do this, go over here, go behind the gate." Um,
Okay, my second question, I love that. My second question is it like as a dog trainer, as a grandma, as a mom, I always just tell people don't let the child walk around with food. Like have them sit at the kitchen table and eat food there so that it's predictable and we're not bumping up against that. Is that just bad advice and like impossible to do with a toddler?
no, no, I don't think it's impossible by any means. I do, and even looking at it, like, when these situations occur, I see errors in what I've done that set the situation up for failure, right? It could have been Delilah's in her little chair strapped in, because otherwise she's gonna escape, eating her snack at the table, right? And dogs are off, behind the gate. Um, and so there's a little bit of, in my case, right, where like I have made these mistakes, and whether it's
I don't
because
think
it's a
it's a
day where,
mistake. I think it's just you're living life, right? And
yeah,
we stumble along a little bit. And sometimes we're busy, we're distracted. Like I I don't I think being a parent is spectacularly difficult and the learning curve is steep. And so I'm gonna my vet actually said to me once that she loved me enough to not let me should all over myself. And I love you enough to not have you should all over yourself, right? Like we can woulda, coulda, shoulda ourselves to the ends of the world and back. And I just I don't want I want better things for the world, right? That being a parent's hard. Being a dog owner can be difficult. You're
yeah,
navigating novel waters. Delilah has never been the number of moments old that she is. Your dogs have never like you're all newbies in some ways. And giving yourself grace is a huge part of this because if not, you just start to get paralyzed by all the I should, I could, I woulda.
yeah,
So
that,
I
yeah.
hope you're more than enough. You're doing great. All right, I'm gonna shut up.
No, no, you're okay. It's a good point. What you were saying, the don't have food, involved if, the dogs are out, baby's out. Um, what happens sometimes in my case is I'm trying to get dishes done. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. And Delilah wants your attention, right? And I'm the kind of person where that frustration over being overwhelmed builds, right? If I'm in the middle of a task and that there's that constant like, hey, 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 which is a lot of what she's at right now. And it's not anything bad that she's doing. I mean, her attention, giving her attention, love, affection, doing things with her. I love it. I adore it. But living in like a messy home, things unorganized, it's like nails on a chalkboard, right? So sometimes things just have to get done, right? And in those cases, that's where I'm pulling a cheese stick out of the fridge, I'm grabbing a cracker, and I'm like, "Give me 10 more minutes, eat your snack," and it might just be that the dog, Noir can very easily clear the baby gate, right? So it could be that she's out existing on the other side and happens to come over, right? Not because I called her or anything. She's just over, right? She's just hanging out. She might want to see what I'm doing. Um, and those are the kinds of situations, or I left that gate open, right? Or the dogs are just out, they're with me, or I let them inside from being outside. Where at some point, like the paths have crossed where there's food and there's baby. Even if I know and can tell myself she should be, a dog should be put up while she has food, or I should have her sitting down while she's eating. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of like life happens, and also I need to stop and take a breath and go, okay, maybe thinking a little bit more about what I'm doing before. Okay, if I'm gonna give her a snack, being aware of the fact that, are there dogs around? Should I do something? Should I pause? Go do this.
So for me, parenting got a lot easier when I started to apply everything I learned in business,
Yeah.
which fits in a thimble, to parenting and managing the household. So
Mm.
having a loose routines kind of schedule and having 3 to 5 ways to navigate. So what I mean by that is I might keep that dog with me while I'm rinsing dishes and loading the dishwasher, and the baby is out in the fenced backyard where I can see her playing in a pack and play with finger paints or a snack, and kind of, okay, you're where you need to be. The dogs are where they need to be. I'm where I need
Yeah.
to be, and go. And that it it definitely was a hat that fit a little oddly in the beginning, but
Yeah.
became like, seriously, within a week, I was like, wow, I'm way less stressed and I'm more likely to be the mama I want to be instead of
Right.
the mama I sometimes become.
Right. Right. I think that's where I'm at. I'm in this
You want to
process of
hit
trying
that
to figure it
flow
out.
state, as you
Yeah.
youngins call it.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's definitely where I'm at, and I can guarantee you that's where a lot of moms are at. That own pets, that have kids, that just have kids, um, and are trying to figure all of that out. So you're not alone. Um, even I,
Yeah.
somebody who is a professional, doing, knowing the things I know about dogs, I'm still stumbling. Right? There's still things that are happening where if as a dog trainer, I would go, well, you should do this instead. Right? I don't always have that outside look in what am I doing. Um,
Well, and the answer for Vega is probably going to be different than the answer for Noir. And the answer for
Ah.
Priscilla is probably going to be different than the answer for the cat. So, and, assuming you and your sweet guy continue reindeer games at your house, there's the potential that there's going to be siblings to Delilah, and that those dynamics start to explode and become really more complicated. So I think we're always learning and navigating it. That development is always going to be changing.
no, no, we are, and it is. It's gonna be. It's a
There's a
work in
lot of
progress.
flexibility.
Yeah, yeah,
Behavioral flexibility is kind of key.
yeah. I think we chatted about it the last time I was on too, about how I might have a plan about how this is gonna go and this is gonna go, and 9 times out of 10, that is not what happens, and being able to just roll with what does end up happening with grace and forgiveness and patience and all the things that are easier said than done, um, but make it worth it, right? When the instances when I can do that, when I do, um,
Get
you
ahead
know,
of it is
take
what
a
I use.
breath.
That's my shorthand, like get ahead of it instead of behind it.
Yeah. Right, right. When I have to bring the dogs in from a potty break, all right, Delilah, you sit at your table with your snack or your meal. If it's lunchtime, dogs go straight behind the baby gate. If they have their little filled Kong to play with, they've got their snack, they're doing their thing. Like, and it rolls smooth, so I see that it works, right? And then that does the difference in feeling to me, is exponential too, right? Um, so yeah, that I don't know if that answers the
It
questions that
does.
you asked, but
It does.
that's where we're at.
So we know we've got resource guarding, right?
Yeah.
In a variety of directions. The child, assuming that they need to guard something as much as the dog's saying, hey, I need to guard something. So
Right.
it's happening in both directions. And it sounds like you have that kind of on the run. So I have also found, right, at 15 months, Delilah understands a lot of what you're saying. She has probably, while she can't say it back necessarily, like she understands an awful lot of what you're communicating. The dogs do too. So, are you working on reducing the stress that, because you and I both know stress is actually what causes that resource guarding? It's a fear response. The dog,
Right.
the child is afraid of losing access to something that they perceive to have value to them. They don't want to
Right.
give it up, right? Everyone has heard the toddler scream mine, um, or mom scream, no, that's mommy's punch. That's mommy's cookie. That's mommy's ice cream. I don't
Special
want
dream.
dirt in it.
Yeah.
So you've got that. Sounds like you've got that pretty well on the run, and I'm sure it's going to be a recurring theme, something that shows up again.
Yeah.
Are there
Yeah.
other points of potential conflict? I guess that's a good way to say it. Are there other interactions that you're seeing that are potentially having a little bit of conflict?
Um, those are the pretty big ones. Right. I
Okay,
haven't run into nothing yet, but I will
good.
keep you updated. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, those are big ones, and we're doing the things to mitigate them, to change them. I'm learning new things as I'm doing them, new ways, like maybe I should have done it this way. I'll try that next time, right? And the next time rolls around, oh, that worked nice, or oh, that didn't. Let's try this, right? So I'm
Well, and
learning
you
a
can, and
ton.
I would also say, like, unless something's an unmitigated disaster, attempting it 3 times really,
Right.
like, I don't assume that anything works until it's worked like 3 days in a row. Then I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Okay, I think we got this on the run." Because sometimes the first time we do something, we changed it and the child, the dog, the cat, the spouse, the partner, the sibling, it works, but then they're on to us. And then and then maybe it kinda
Mhm.
doesn't work as great the next time and then works even less the time after that. This is like
Yeah.
when we try to be sneaky. I tell people all the time, like, "Stop trying to be sneaky, we're not good at it." Like, we absolutely communicate our sneakiness all the time.
Oh
So,
yeah.
I mean, maybe if you make your life your living as a scammer, you can get away with it, but most of us are not good at a con job. So, are there things Delilah is wanting to do that that you've had to think about more than maybe you thought? Like, I don't know, dogs often want to give children want to give dogs things, or like sweet little Vega, who's like a little furry ping pong ball, like using Delilah as a parkour tool. Um, are there things like that that you're starting to kind of bump up against?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And actually, you did just ask if there were other things that have started to become a problem. One of the other big things, right, which isn't necessarily a behavioral issue, is that Noir will run, walk, trot past Delilah, right? And poor little Delilah just doesn't have the balance. And Noir, just not the awareness, not any intent that's malicious. She's not trying to do it out of the meanness of, her heart. It's just she just walks past her, boom, bumps into her, and then Delilah's on the ground. Right? So that is something else that we run into. But I was on the behavior, this, that. It's not a fun thing, right? And some people might go, well, they'll grow out of it. But I've turned it into this really fun opportunity to play these body awareness games that are new to me, even as a trainer, right?
So
Um,
body awareness games for Delilah, for the dogs, the chicken, the cat, or both? Or
yeah,
I guess
all
it's
of
not
the
even a
above.
both, for all of the above.
Yeah, yeah. For Delilah, well, we're in the beginning stages of it right now. Um, I'm not Delilah actually has so backtracking a little bit, she has hearing issues right now. She had to get tubes in. So while she might be hearing us, right, it's not to the ability or the extent that I think, um, like she would be if she hadn't had like the tube issues, the ear issues, the fluid in the ears, all the stuff, right? So I don't know. We're waiting on like the irritation and inflammation of the ears to die down. Um, so I don't know if that she's at the point right now where I can say, kind of coach her how to do things or go, hey, tell the dog you to do this, tell the dog you to do that. Um, but we're getting there. I think we'll probably be there in the next couple of months. With the dog, right? So with Noir, with her bumping into Delilah, one of the things we've started doing, um, step one was teaching her an easy cue, right? If she's coming in from outside and she's super excited and Delilah's also out, right? Having a cue that essentially means slow down, calm down, take a breath, move slowly, regulate your movements, has been really helpful. Just teaching her how to slow down because a lot of times that speed, the coming in, the focus on I'm going here, whatever else is outside of my field of vision isn't mattering. And so, boom, that's when Delilah gets bumped into. So teaching that easy cue has been, really fun actually, because we've been incorporating Delilah into that. Can you walk slowly even when you're super excited? Past Delilah. But we started out with a box, right? When she was on a leash. So got her on a leash and we're just leash walking past this box. I might walk briskly up to the box, and as soon as we get to it, easy, and my pace slows down drastically, right? And so over time, that easy and that change in pace start to go hand in hand. Then you test it, right? Can you do it um, on your own, right? So now there's a box, you're on the other side of it, and instead of come, which is book it to me, it's easy, right? And then all of a sudden the dog is like, easy, right? And so you start to see the connection between easy and slowing your movements. It's still pretty, like of a vague cue, but she's starting, you can see the connection between easy and slowing down. Um, some people use slow, some people use be careful. It's just something that means like, whoa, right? Whoa is another one too. Just slow down. And that's helped a lot on its own. And just teaching Noir when cued to slow down, right? And then
So are you just
in
doing like 3 minutes at a time? Like, okay, get 3 repetitions in, off to switch the laundry?
that's exactly it, right? If it's or if Delilah is taking a nap and I've got all these things I need to get done while she's sleeping, right? It might be, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can grab a handful of food and get through these 20 pieces of kibble in my hand."
I
That's
love
it.
that. I love making it really attainable that we can do it in 1 or 2 minutes at a time. Are you doing it like in a larger room? Are you practicing in a hallway? Have you gotten to the point she's got like a obstacle course through the hall? Like, how far are you taking this?
Yeah, so I started with the baby gate because that's where a lot of the issues start happening, right? And if we're going through that narrower space, like she already has to focus on, okay, she doesn't necessarily like to bump into things, right? She doesn't like to knock into my leg. She doesn't like to knock into the baby gate. So if we're going through that narrower space, she's already thinking about her movements a little bit more than if we're just walking past something in a big wide open area. So a hallway or a doorway, our baby gate in this case would work really well for that, where your dog's on a leash, you walk up to the baby gate, and whatever side your dog is on, I like to kind of put less space between myself and the dog so that they have to think about what they're doing with that smaller space they have, right? So, for example, if you have a baby gate, what I'll do when I'm walking towards the gate sometimes is if the dog's on my left side, right, I might actually go closer to the left, right? So that there's enough space for them to walk through the gate, but there's a little bit less, so they really have to think about what they're doing in the beginning. And as you get better at it, you make it the space wider and wider and wider, right? So you're kind of setting up the situation for them to think about their movements. And of course, as you get there, you slow down, you say easy, and the dog has to think about how they're getting to the gate when it's a smaller space. Then we open it up to like the full baby gate, then a doorway, and then we're using wider and wider spaces. Right now, I'm walking with the dog on a leash past a box. Right before we're incorporating Delilah, and she has to get knocked over before the dog understands it. Now we're using a box. Right, we walk up pretty quickly to the box. You slow down, easy. Dog slows down, and they think it's so much fun. Right, being able to you run and you slow down, you run and you slow down, um, and of course you're marking and rewarding, right? Yes, here's a treat. Yay, here's a reward. When they do the right thing. So it's just a game to them. They're just thinking it's super fun. And as they start to generalize that, then you have the dog on the other side of the gate. And again, you're kind of making it a smaller, narrow space. Might put a box in the middle of the gate. So they have to go around it, right? And you're marking and rewarding as they slow down, as they are careful with how they're moving, and if they barge past it, you just reset, right? You try again. But I
So
find,
are you using like uh-oh when
oh yeah,
there's an error? Like I really, so I have to tell you, like I really changed how I'm communicating with all of my little furry friends and humans too, non-furry humans. Um with using uh-oh, right? Like, oh, uh-oh, like we made a mistake. Because oftentimes the dog isn't bad or wrong. They're just,
right.
oh, we made a mistake, right? So it it for me anyway, I endeavor to save no for things that are never allowed. Pooping on the
Hmm.
dining room table, man or beast, you are not allowed to do that. Sorry,
Right,
right? So that's
right.
a no. Running into the street without permission, that's a no. But it's a it's really safety issues that are big safety issues. Like don't get out of the
Mm.
car without my permission. Um, but more and more I use uh-oh or oh, be careful, careful, right? Because I sometimes the dog really wants to do the thing I'm asking them to do, but like their enthusiasm's just getting away from them. Or the
Mhm.
child is trying to do what I'm asking them to do, but the enthusiasm really just gets away from them. And
Right.
learning is learning, right?
It is.
Obviously, I am not clicking and giving a Skittle to the baby, but I'm going to practice this skill with the child as well as with the dogs and the chicken and the cat
Yeah.
so that we've got kind of a cohesive, like we all know the rules of the road.
Right, exactly.
I
No,
love
and
how you're teaching that. That's great. I wonder if eventually you'll do like a Pilates ball. Like I've seen people do it with big Pilates balls
yeah.
and, going to like a craft store and getting floral rings and slowly making them smaller and smaller until, so like if there's a big ring, like you're making a large wreath, the ball has more support, but slowly making that support smaller and smaller until the ball is just on the floor and you can perceive, did it move when
Mm,
the learner moved close to it, or did they navigate around it, right?
right.
So or a little kid's bowling pin set, right? Did we knock pins over? And I've totally played games with a dog who's sound sensitive or tactily sensitive of like how many pins can you knock down, right? Like turn them into Godzilla destroying the boxes that are Tokyo, right? So you can play the game in both directions, like the Crash
Yeah.
Bandicoot version, like here, knock over as much as you can and make a terrific noise and mess, and we're going to celebrate that. Versus I'm going to build a course that you have to navigate, being careful where you're putting your body so that things aren't knocking over, right? So you
Mhm.
can kind of play the games both ways. I love that you're
Yeah.
on to that.
No, it's been tons of fun.
And it's
And
something we could start with our animals, our dogs, even before we're
yeah,
pregnant. Right? Grandparents can work on this with their dogs. Friends of, my friend is having a baby. We can work on it with our dogs because I don't want to lose that friendship just because my dogs don't live with little kids.
right, right, exactly. And it's just so much nicer and kinder to your relationship. And I find that my dogs like are so much happier about doing that than a no, stop, don't do this. Why are you doing that?
Rah, rah,
Right?
rah, 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 rah. You become the Peanuts mom. Rah, 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 rah. Well, and I'll tell you, like, this is actually, like, this is an interesting thing from the human perspective. So we recently got a new Roomba. Ah, the angels sing. And her name's Rosie. She slows down before she bumps into things. One of the things I did not love about Roombas in the past is that they like crash into everything. As a matter of fact, one of them is named Bumble because he just crashed it like me. He would crash into me if I was standing still washing dishes or whatever. And so the fact that the programming and the technology has changed is
Yeah.
telling me, I think it's informing a belief that as humans, we don't like the banging into things. Like we don't like when things in our environment are doing that.
Mhm.
That it's off-putting. So I think this is like one of those things that as a dog trainer, I never really thought about in a
Yeah.
really significant way as much as I do now. And it also changes which breeds I recommend to families that there's anyone in the household with a balance issue. And I'll give you a quick example. Um, Rhodesian Ridgebacks, the way that what they were developed to do was for hunting large game. So they hunted in a pretty big pack. Their job was to encircle the prey animal and come in and nip it in the butt, and it turns to the left. And then another dog nips it on the right and gets. So they just wear the animal out until it's safe for the hunter to call the dogs off and then to dispatch that animal, hopefully
Right.
as kindly as we can. And we could talk about the ethics of this all day long. I'm just telling you what it is. So when a Doberman bangs into you, it actually sometimes means something different than when a roadie does it, right? But
Yeah.
roadies are designed to do it. So asking that dog to not exhibit that behavior that's bred into them, like, can it be managed, and our dog's going to have a deviation of how much or how little they're listening to that instinct? Of course. But I would
Yeah.
not say to a family, hey, if you have toddlers, this is something I would want them to consider. How body aware is that dog? The same way that I would be looking at sociability or bite drive or prey drive in general. So it's
Mhm.
part of the thinking through the characteristics of the prince or princess charming dog that would be a phenomenal family member, because thinking through these different criteria, I think, really greases the skids to make these transitions and integrations easier or more difficult. And if you have a Rhodesia Ridgeback and you're having a baby, I'm not saying that that's going to be a nightmare. Just means we might need to start this work a little more quickly and be a little bit more aware that that has a different meaning.
Right. Yes, exactly. No, that's a really good point too. Yeah. No, it's been tons of fun. I've enjoyed it a lot. And it's not I think last time we talked about all the things that I did do before she was born, and this was not even something that crossed my mind, right? Especially since Noir is for us, right? The bumping is very it might not be it might not be as much, right? You might not even notice it. You're just existing with a dog. That might be a pretty normal thing. And then you get this really wobbly 20-pound, little tiny gremlin who you adore walking around. That little bump is a lot, right? That's shaking her world, literally to the point where she falls on the ground. So it's not something that I thought about beforehand, but it is something that now that I know and experiencing going through for my clients that do have kids, for my actually, I have a daycare client who, when I was offering daycare, um, whose her daughter is starting to get to the age where she's moving around. And one of the first things I told her is, I'm like, let's work on body awareness, right? They have, gosh, it's just probably a little Aussie or Kelpie mix cattle dog. They're both mixes, right? The smaller one, Noir size, and the older one, the younger one, but he's the bigger one, and he's a pit mix, right? And he's that super strong, wiggly tails whipping everywhere. And now
Right,
I
where you wanna
know.
give the baby, like, a welding helmet because that tail is like a whip, and it's
Yeah,
right at face height. Like,
it is.
I Chris laughs because 'cause I'll come home and he'll be like, "Oh, you have a new pity client," and it's a happy pit, right? I love them; 'em, they're great,
Yeah,
but I'll have these straight line bruises on my calves because 'cause I'm at that
right.
age, right? So, he's like, "Oh, I can see you played with the pit today," and he loved you and was super happy and wagged his tail and just smashed you.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah. Oh, and honestly, like, all of these things are also for your great-grandmother comes and visits, and
Yeah.
her balance isn't great or she's having vertigo or whatever. You're gonna have the same group of stuff, it's just gonna be in a grown-up instead of in a little one.
Right, right, exactly. Anybody who has mobility, balance, all of the above issues is going to find use from these same types of exercises. And it goes on and on and on, and the things that you can do. But that's where we started. Like, that's how we started to get into it.
This conversation had too much good stuff to fit into just one episode. So tune in next week for part 2 of our discussion on navigating life with toddlers and dogs.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.